Welcome everyone! It's great to have you. My name is Victoria Tippins. I am a childbirth educator and student midwife, and I've been attending births for 15 years. And throughout that time, I created a 5-step process to support parents in having a more peaceful birth experience, and it's called the Peaceful Birth Method. And so that framework is basically these 5 steps I find when parents go like check, 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 and they feel really confident and prepared going into birth, and they feel confident around all these different steps, they're much more likely to have the kind of birth that they want to have. And I like to teach that there's no wrong choices when it comes to births. It's really just about choosing what feels best for you. In the spirit of more choices, not less, for parents, I want to do this training today on water birth and hydrotherapy in labor. This is an evidence-based choice that has been very, very well researched all throughout the world to support outcomes, like healthier outcomes specifically for both mothers and babies. You know, when it comes to water birth, a big block that I see is this evidence practice gap, where it takes many years for current research and evidence to make its way into policy, and that can really impact access to this option. So let's talk about that a little bit, and then we're going to go into some of the research and evidence on water birth and hydrotherapy in labor. So with the evidence practice gap, it can take 10 or 20 years or sometimes more for current research and evidence to make its way into policy and practice. And so basically what that means is that if you were to come out with all of this research saying water birth is a safe option for low-risk people. For example, medical establishment might be like, hold up, that really challenges, like what we are used to doing. It might be more expensive for us to suddenly get tubs to try to accommodate. We don't have training, and we're not interested in funding training to support parents in having safe water births. There are lots of different reasons why there's suddenly a halt in providers wanting to and hospitals wanting to expand access to this. But water birth is very sought out, and low intervention natural births are also becoming more and more popular. So something that I've noticed, and evidence-based birth has noted this as well, that hospitals may say that they offer water birth when actually they only offer tubs for labor, but they don't allow you to birth in the water. And maybe there's only 2 of those bigger labor tubs, so you get the room if you get it, and if not, you don't get it. So copywriters can create copy and advertising for hospitals that can be a little bit misleading. So if you are planning to birth at a hospital or at a birth center, or if you're giving birth at home, I think it's good to talk to your provider about do you offer water birth, right? And what is your skill and training around it? But especially if you're going out of your home where you don't have as much control into a hospital where they say that they offer it, it would be important to be clear. Do you offer water birth or just hydrotherapy? I would also ask what circumstance would warrant me not be able to have a water birth if you do allow it, so that you can understand what that would look like, because there might be some rules. And I would also ask, is there a tub in every room? Or am I just going to be one of the lucky few that get the tub, and if someone else has it, then I won't get it? Having that clarity is important because we don't want any surprises when we go into birth. So those are a few questions to ask your provider if you are wanting a water birth or you want to use hydrotherapy to help you cope with labor. The difference between water birth and hydrotherapy is that in a water birth, you are delivering your baby in the water. Hydrotherapy means that you are using water to help you to cope with labor. And that doesn't just mean that you're in a tub. It also means you are maybe using a shower. Walk-in showers can be really great. Some hospitals and birth centers and some people at their home have a walk-in shower. If you have a walk-in shower, you can bring in your birth ball and sit on the birth ball and let the water hit your back. That can feel so good. You can also get a towel and roll it up and stick it on the ground. And then you can put your knees on the towel and then lean over the birth ball with the water hitting your back. And that can feel so good too. And laboring in the shower with your partner, if you have one, or on your own, can be a really sweet, kind of more private, intimate place to labor, especially if you are birthing in a hospital. If you want to have your partner come in, I would say have swim trunks, right? As a partner. My husband, for our home birth, he just wore his underwear for our water births. And that was fine because he was in the tub with me and just wore his underwear. But we want to like, probably have bottoms on for a partner. So plan for that. And then, you two could be in the shower facing each other. You could do like some skin to skin rocking back and forth together with the water hitting your back. Like that can feel really good. One thing to be aware of though, when it comes to hydrotherapy access for labor, right, for active labor, but not for pushing, is that when you get through transition or you're going through transition, which is typically one of the most challenging phases of labor, kind of depends. When your body releases adrenaline, that can block oxytocin. And so either you will nap through your contractions, or you'll have a big space in between contractions because the adrenaline is slowing things down, basically. So you could just like take a nap and wake up and be ready to push your baby out. And that happens sometimes. Or you might have a different experience of adrenaline where you are feeling shaky or doubtful or nauseous or just feeling like you can't do it anymore. And then your baby comes. That's very common to feel like right when we feel like we can't do it anymore, our baby is about ready to come out. It's a very, very cool part of going through birth, is facing a part of yourself where you have self-doubt and then working through it, and then you end up doing it. And that's what is so empowering, or what can be so empowering about birth. In a hydrotherapy setting where you are not allowed to birth in the water, what that looks like is you get close to pushing sometimes if you're really rocking it in the water and that's helping you so much. And then all of a sudden you have to get out, right, of the water and pushing. And sometimes what this looks like is a provider will come in and say, like, maybe you start pushing. And so the nurse calls the provider and the provider says, oh, looks like you're pushing. Time to get out of the tub, get on your back. You are in one of the most vulnerable experiences of your entire life. And so to be instructed to stop doing what it is that you are doing that works well for you, and to do something else based on someone else's convenience and honestly lack of skill and training on normal physiologic birth. If a provider wants you to get on your back, it does not mean that that's what's best for you. It means that they have limitations in their training, which is their responsibility to fix, not your responsibility to like mold what you're doing, right, to like fit someone else's however they want to do things. And so yeah, I've seen this quite a few times and heard so many stories of parents being told, get out of the water, now you get on your back and now start pushing, and you're just kind of like, okay, doc, I'm gonna like do what you say, even though like things were going really, really well and the mom still feels like they want to be in an upright position. Let's talk about this a little bit. If you are planning to use hydrotherapy in the hospital or at a birth center, I feel like I haven't heard of ever a birth center that doesn't allow water birth and only allows hydrotherapy, but I'm sure one exists. But if you are laboring in the water and then you're told that you need to get out to birth outside of the tub because that is what the hospital rule is, honestly, that's probably the right thing to do. And I like to say that most of the time you'll hear me say, like, you can say no to cervical exams, you can say no to policy. Policy is not law. And of course, policy is not law. But when it comes to the delivery of your baby in the water, if you are not surrounded by care providers who know what the heck they're doing, it does make it a less safe situation for you, because there are like a few specific things we just need to be aware of with water birth. Providers need to know how to bring the baby up slowly to prevent the cord from breaking, because we can't see the cord as well. Providers need to know how to assess blood loss safely in the water. If your OB or midwife or nurses do not have training around water birth, if they do not feel comfortable with water birth, probably what will happen is they'll feel really afraid in that moment if you say, no, I'm not getting out of the tub, I'm going to stay here. And when providers and hospital staff have fear, they're less likely to act in a safe way. They're more likely to act in a fearful way, and that can be a negative thing for you and your baby. So that's important to be aware of as well. If you really want a water birth and the hospital doesn't offer that, it would be worth exploring and seeing if there's another place that you can access that. And unfortunately, access to water birth can be quite limited in some places. Some people, like I know a mama who traveled 2 hours just to get better care. She ended up doing hydrotherapy. They didn't offer water birth, but just the fact that they had tubs and hydrotherapy really meant so much to her and helped her so much. Some moms travel for their care. Some moms will fundraise to be able to access a home birth midwife. You can get a little creative. And at the end of the day, if it's something that you can't access, it's really important that you're okay with that and you understand that it's probably the safest choice for you to get out of the water and birth somewhere else. But if that is the case, you do not have to be on your back. If you start pushing and it's time to get out of the tub, if you're in a place that doesn't support water birth but supports hydrotherapy, just get out of the tub and get into whatever position you want. If you were feeling really good kneeling or lunging or hands and knees, you can have someone put a towel down outside the tub, hop out of the tub and just continue in that same position right there on the bathroom floor if you want, on top of a towel. You don't have to be in the bed if you don't want to. And if the bed would be more comfortable, then you can walk over there and hop on the bed and have your baby that way. But you don't ever have to get on your back. That's just kind of like a quick overview around access to water birth and the difference between hydrotherapy and water birth, different policies around it and things like that. We have 5 randomized control trials on water birth and quite a few other meta-analyses and observational studies and case reviews. It's kind of hard to do a randomized control trial, even though those are considered to be like the gold standard for research, because we randomly assign a group of people to be in a water birth group, which means they're going to have a water birth, and people to birth on land. It's kind of hard to do that with birth because a lot of people don't want to birth on land or don't want to birth in the water. You know, they have their own preferences. And so to randomly tell someone, like, we're going to randomly assign you to either be in the water or on land, it's not easy to get participants for that. So I'm going to go over 2 randomized control trials that we have that are small but still significant. And I'll also go over a Cochrane review that had quite a few participants that show some really had very interesting results around water birth. I did want to say one more thing that was so interesting. Water birth has been researched for quite a few decades. In the year 2000, the American Academy of Pediatrics released a statement saying that water birth was not safe, that water birth had not been studied, that it was dangerous, even though water birth had been studied with randomized control trials and case reports and observational studies before then, which is really interesting. And it took until very, very recently for ACOG and the AAP to release statements around water birth that are more neutral or generally more supportive. Still not where we want it to be, I would say. Still not completely aligned with research and evidence, but there has been this like really, really big pushback. And there's one thing that I've noticed that I just wanted to share that I think is so interesting when it comes to water birth and why there's such a big pushback and why there's such a big evidence gap. Like I illustrated a little bit before, there's like question about liability and expense of like having tubs and like training providers and things like that. But I would like to just bring your awareness to the cultural shift. Every hospital is so different, every provider is so different, but typically parents come in and they do what they're told and they follow along this conveyor belt model of care where we follow different algorithms and policies. Your water's broken, you get Pitocin. It's been 4 hours, time for a cervical exam, right? And we just treat everyone that way. And there is not a lot of personalization. And it's easy to capitalize. You know, hospitals make 2 to 3 times more money when they're using interventions. And it's easier to capitalize when we have these like specific routine policies where people have to do this thing and that thing and this thing and that thing, because that generates more revenue for the hospital. And also I think it benefits providers, since they're seeing so many people, to be able to go in and just say, okay, we do this thing. This is like what we do. This is our routine, instead of really taking the time and investing the energy and being flexible and making things personalized for each person. So I think it makes a lot of sense from a revenue perspective if we have mounting right research that shows that water birth decreases interventions. I don't know if every hospital is going to want to jump on implementing that, because that really impacts profit, right? If we're helping people have better outcomes, helping people reduce intervention, that's going to cut into profits. And it's also just going to really challenge the cultural norm of you come in and you just do what you're told. In the water, you have agency. The provider can't see your perineum. Like they can't watch the baby's head come out. They can't control every little thing, protect your perineum by touching your perineum with their hands and things like that, which we have research that shows that that actually increases the risk for tearing. They have way less control. And as a birth worker, I've learned that sitting on your hands is a skill. And it's a skill that many obstetricians don't have. Some of them do. Some midwives don't have that skill and some of them do. Some doulas do, some doulas don't. When you're in birth, you're in the presence of a normal physiologic event where physiology works very, very well when undisturbed. And if we don't know how to trust physiology, if we are in a fear-based model of care and that's how we practice and that's what benefits us, or that's all that we know, it can be very, very hard to see a normal physiologic birth unfold and to not feel like we have to do something to intervene. So water birth really challenges the culture at large. In general, water birth has been shown to reduce the risk for pain, so it reduces pain scores. It reduces the use of medications in labor, so it reduces the use of Pitocin in labor. It also shortens labor. There is an increase in normal vaginal births, so that means that we're reducing the risk and the use of forceps and vacuum with water birth. Water birth is protective to your perineum and reduces the risk for tearing, especially severe perineal tears. It reduces the risk for episiotomies. Episiotomies are a procedure where a provider takes sterile scissors and makes an incision through some of the perineum at the base of the vagina to increase the delivery space. And it also increases satisfaction scores. So parents report feeling more satisfied with their births after they have a water birth, which is very, very cool. Let's go over to randomized control trials. There was one published in 2013 in Iran. It was a group of 100 people randomly assigned, right, to birth on land, 100 randomly assigned to birth in the water. A few participants dropped out. I think maybe there was about 88 or so that actually ended up birthing in water, something like that. The cesarean rate was 5% in the water birth group and 16% in the land birth group. The rate of C-section was lower. The parents reported that they had less pain when they were in the water. There was also less meconium they found. So for the babies that were born in water, and I'll say meconium is when the baby has a poop in utero during labor. That sometimes can become problematic. Sometimes it's not. It can be a sign of stress. So looks like 2% of the babies that were born in the water group had meconium versus 24% on land. And also they found that the baby's APGAR scores were better. And APGAR score is a score to identify how well a baby is doing after they're born. So if babies are born in the water, what they found in that study is that babies transitioned better and were healthier and were less likely to need resuscitation or breathing support or anything like that after they were born, which is very cool. There was another study in China by Gaiti et al. In 2015 that had 60 people in each of the groups, and they found that there were significant health benefits to the parents that were in the water birth group. 75% had an intact perineum. There is a decrease in the use of episiotomy from 2% to 28%. So there was a 2% episiotomy rate in the water birth group, and there was a 28% episiotomy rate in the land birth group, which is like really alarming to me because, well, maybe first I'll say the evidence-based episiotomy rate is 1%. It's not common, I would say, to find a provider that truly practices an episiotomy in an evidence-based way. And it really varies. Quite a handful of providers will, perform episiotomy in an evidence-based way. And I do know that there are many hospitals that just don't really do it anymore. But other hospitals in the US still have episiotomy rates around 10 to 15%. There are some countries in the world where the episiotomy rate is 80%, which is just alarming. So 28% is very, very high. They also found that there was a decrease in pain scores and births were 50 minutes faster when the parent was birthing in the water, which was very, very interesting. There was no evidence that showed that water birth was harmful in any way to the babies, but since both of these randomized control trials were so small, it's hard to be able to identify what would happen in a bigger population, right? You would need probably about 2,000 participants to account for any kind of rare fluke thing that can happen. Another study that came out by Burns et al. In 2023, and this was a combination of 36 studies, so it is an analysis, a meta-analysis, and 25 of those studies involved water birth specifically from the year 2000 to 2021. And so there's a total of 157,000 participants in these studies. And so what they found is that laboring and birthing in the water led to many different positive health results, like number one, a decrease in the use of Pitocin, a decrease in the use of opioids in labor, a decrease in the use of epidurals, a decrease in pain scores. They found that more parents had an intact perineum when they were giving birth with an obstetrician. But they found that for parents that were birthing in a midwifery group, there wasn't any difference in the rate of perineal tears. And that's because midwives just practice in it more of an evidence-based way and they're more supportive to protecting the perineum. So that makes a lot of sense to me. They also found a decrease in the risk for an episiotomy, an infection, which is interesting because a lot of people say like you'll get an infection if you birth in the water, but apparently according to this study there was actually a decrease in the risk for infection. There was an increase in parent satisfaction and a decrease in postpartum hemorrhage, which is very, very cool. There's a lot of evidence and research out there on water birth. I hope that illustrates the benefits to you well. So next, let's talk about the 2 risks. One of those risks is a cord avulsion. And cord avulsion means that the cord snaps. So if you can imagine, like baby comes out, we bring baby to your chest, and all of a sudden we see that like the cord maybe is hanging from baby that far and it's separated from the rest of the cord that's connected to the placenta that's still inside. I did see this one time before, which was really interesting. And it's not a big deal if we catch it and clamp it, because as long as the cord can be clamped on both sides, then you're protected. You could bleed out and the baby could bleed out if that is not taken care of. But as long as we clamp it, it's okay. So yeah, it's something that has nothing to do with the water specifically. And I think it's important to recognize that. It just really has to do with the training. So I have seen quite a few water births where the baby comes out and the provider kind of throws the baby like onto the parent very quickly. When we lift a baby up quickly and kind of throw them onto the parent, we increase the risk for cord avulsion because we're not really accounting for how long the cord actually is. And sometimes the cord is long enough, I have a baby here, to be able to have your baby after they're born, like reach your chest and go all the way up right here. But every once in a while, the cord will be kind of short, in which case the baby can probably only hang out on your belly. Maybe the top of their head can like kind of get up to your chest, but we can't really bring the baby as high as we want to because the cord is just so short. And there's really no way to accurately know if you're going to have a short cord or a long cord, you know, after your baby comes out. So the way that we mitigate this risk is to have providers that are well trained so that they can bring the baby up slowly and just be aware of that. If you are catching your own baby in the water, then it's important that you remember to go slow and bring the baby up slowly after they're born. I find that often when parents are just honoring their own intuition, listening to their body and catching their own baby and bringing their baby to their chest, they're not like throwing the baby up in the air right away. They have these instincts to do the thing the way that they're meant to do, the right way. But it's like a good part of birth education and something that every parent should know if they're planning a water birth, especially if they're considering catching their own baby. If you're considering having a partner catch the baby, making sure that we bring the baby up really slowly is important. Can the baby drown? Like, should we bring the baby out of the water really fast because they can drown? The answer is no. I mean, if we leave the baby under the water eventually, yes, obviously, but no, like the baby is not going to drown if they're in the water for a few seconds as you're bringing them out of the water. And this is why you don't have to like get them out and throw them out of the water really quickly. This is also why it's okay for the baby's head to come out like this and for the shoulders to rotate, and then we just wait. So you could be your body's under the water, your baby's head is under the water, and we're waiting for the next contraction. And on the next contraction, then the uterus and the body will push the baby out and the baby will come out. And then we can like kind of slowly bring them up out of the water and bring them to our chest. That's okay to do that. That's a normal physiological way for baby to come out of your body. If there was any concern with baby's heart tones or anything like that, they can reach in with a Doppler and check the heart tones when you're in the water. Then they would ask you to get out of the water, and that's a good decision. Because if there's concern with baby's heart rate, we want to get you out of the water so that it's easier to like resuscitate the baby after they're born. And maybe provider might need to be more hands-on in that situation, and that makes sense. But otherwise, it's okay for baby's head to come out, for their shoulders to rotate, for us to wait for the next contraction. And on the next contraction, baby comes out and we bring baby out of the water slowly. If the head comes out and a minute goes by, and on the next contraction, baby doesn't come out, that is an emergency, and that isn't a situation where we need to get out of the water. Or if the head comes out, you feel like the baby isn't turning, the head comes out maybe to here and is like really tight, you know, like a really tight fit. It's something that is very, very rare for the shoulders to get stuck. It's called a shoulder dystocia, but that is a reason why we want to get out of the water. The cool thing, I would say, about shoulder dystocia is that typically we can note that that's going to happen early on before like a lot of time passes, because the head will come out and be kind of stuck like right around here. If the head comes all the way out and the shoulders rotate, that means that your baby has space, right? It means your baby has the space to rotate and do the thing that they need to do, which is great. If the head comes out and it's just like tight fit and the baby's head can't move, then that is a situation where we want to get the baby out. And that's something that you can feel, your partner can feel, the provider can step in and feel, providers can see too. I've attended so many water births. I've birthed all 3 babies in the water and they were amazing experiences. I have seen a shoulder dystocia in the water. That was something that was visible for us. It was also something that we could reach down and feel the head, and we could just feel immediately like that was a problem. Like we could feel that the head wasn't moving, and then we got mom out of the water and had the baby on the floor. Going back to risk, cord avulsion is the one risk to be aware of, 1 out of 2, and the baby cannot drown when they're under the water because they have a cord connected to them. When the baby's face exits the water, they have a stimulation of air, right? The air like hits their face and then they go like, ah, I can breathe, and they start to breathe. Before they're in the air, there isn't concern about them breathing, trying to breathe, because they're still under the water, if that makes sense. One thing to be aware of with that though, is that water birth is only safe if the tub is filled to a certain level. So if you're filling up the tub and you get in the water to push and the baby's head comes out, and they're not, like they're in the air and there's water right below them, we need to drain the tub immediately and have the mom stand up, because if we dip back under, then the baby could like take a breath and then go under the water and then inhale all this water, and that's really dangerous. So we just want to make sure that like the water level is full and that you're keeping your body under the water when the baby's head comes out. If the baby comes out, same thing. If the baby comes out behind mom, and let's say dad is catching baby, or partner or wife, whoever catches baby, and then what do we do, right? To like get the baby to mom without getting the baby under the water. In this situation, you could do 2 things. You could have mom stand up, partner can take baby and pass baby between mom's legs, and mom can reach down and catch the baby. Mom could flip her leg or flip their leg over the cord, and kind of turn around like and like rotate the leg over the cord while partner holds the baby. If you have a midwife or a provider around to support you, they'll be kind of guiding you through what to do and how to navigate it. I would just say go slow and communicate. So if like the baby comes out, for example, if you're able to get the baby out without baby coming out of the water. So let's say mom is in hands and knees, baby comes out and partner catches baby and baby's still under the water. Partner could say, mom, reach down and catch your baby. I'm passing the baby to you. You know, we're communicating, so we know what's happening with the baby, and mom isn't thinking I need to turn around while someone else is trying to pass the baby. Like we're just gonna pause and communicate. There isn't like a huge like rush. It's better to just like do that transition safely and just make sure that baby doesn't go back under the water. This second risk, the risk for infection, even though we found in that study with 157,000 participants that infection actually went down, which was very interesting. If we're birthing in a water source that is not clean, yes, there's a risk to infection, both for the baby and for the person who gave birth. So it's really important that we're using a clean water source, which thankfully for many people, that isn't a problem, right? Like if you're going to a hospital who has a sanitation like process or a birth center in your own home where you have access to clean water, as long as you have access to clean water, then it's okay. And the space that you're using, the tub, is also clean, then it's okay to birth in the water. We don't want to give birth in a hot tub or labor in a hot tub if your water has been broken, right? With jets, because like the jets can have bacteria build up, so we don't want to do that. We don't want to do one of those things like at home. If you have like early labor and you fill up the tub and like get a warmer on, like some home birth tubs have warmers, and then you let it sit for like 2 days. If you labor like fizzles out, like that's not safe. So we just want to make sure that we're using a clean water source and we're using that water source in active labor, in which case, that risk can be avoided. So the 2 risks of cord avulsion and infection can easily be avoided with proper sanitization and clean water sources, and also good training and just parent education and parents being aware of how to bring baby up safely. Water birth is a really, really cool experience because it gives you more self-agency. It gives you privacy. It gives you the experience of shielding you, literally shielding you from intervention, especially if you're in the hospital. And it's very easy to catch your own baby, or for someone else that you want, like your partner, to catch your baby in the tub. I would say it's easy. It's like not rocket science. You're just catching a baby, in a lot of positions on land too. But when you're in the tub, if you're a person who really wants like a low intervention, really hands-off type of birth experience, being in the water is a great option to consider. And I think that is why it challenges that cultural norm of like, you get on your back and you do the thing that we want you to do, and we're controlling and manipulating everything because that's how we feel safe, because that's where our training is. It really challenges that, because it's giving the parent all of a sudden this opportunity to be the one who's guiding the process. I guess people can coach you. I don't really see a lot of coaching with water birth. It's not very routine to do directed pushing in the water. Instead, we're just letting you push when you're ready. Your body's guiding the way. You'll feel what position to be in. You'll be able to reach down maybe and feel your baby's head, or catch your own baby, or have someone else catch your baby and bring them right up to you in the warm water, and you can just kind of like hang out with them and meet them in the water without all these people kind of hovering over you, because there's only so many people that can surround you when you're in a tub and can all get all up in your business. It just really creates this shield of protection from a lot of that external disruption, intervention, and coaching and things like that we've found through research and evidence to not be routinely beneficial for people. So looking at my notes, like it looks like I covered everything that I wanted to cover today for water birth. Maybe I'll just go over briefly like a few different positions that you can be in. So if you're birthing in the water, it is ideal to be in first whatever position that you want to be in, whatever is most comfortable with you, but also a position that allows your bottom to stay like in the water, right? And to support you in being able to rest safely throughout labor. So if you are holding yourself up a lot, that can start to make you feel kind of exhausted. In the water, you can be upright, but you can like lean over the edge of the tub, which is really nice. And that can be super beneficial. You can have someone like on the outside of the tub right next to your face when you're leaning over or holding your hand, and so they can stay dry but also be like right with you, and that can be really nice. So move around and be in whatever position you want to be in. It's really ideal to move frequently throughout labor, because as we're moving throughout labor and pushing, because as we're moving, we're opening the pelvis in different areas. This pelvis is like a little flexible, but your pelvis really opens quite a bit, and the back will open as well too. And that is offering more space for the baby to navigate that part of the pelvis. And so the more that we move around and allow ourselves to really listen to our body and do what we feel instinctively is right, typically that supports labor progress. Upright birth is also really ideal, because when we're compressing on the blood vessel that runs behind the uterus, that can block oxygen getting to you and to your baby, and it does increase your risk for a C-section just being on your back. So being upright is really ideal. In the tub, typically you will be upright. It's kind of hard to be in other positions. You can recline in the tub too, and reclining in the tub and birthing in that position is much more ideal than birthing in a reclining position on land. And the reason why is because when you're on land, your whole body weight is putting pressure on this back part of the pelvis, and that actually closes the pelvic outlet, which is this exit circle where the baby is exiting your pelvis. If you are in the water and you're leaning against the tub, you'll probably have a little bit of pressure, like kind of more on the bottom part of your pelvis and maybe some here, right? But like not all of your pelvis is going to be constricted. Not all of it is like kind of pushing against, if that kind of makes sense, like against the back. It's kind of more like a part here and here. It does allow for a little bit more mobility of the pelvis, and it can be more comfortable as the baby navigates through that part of the pelvis. If you want to be in a reclining position too, often if you're in the hospital being on land, what will happen is someone will say like, we're going to pull your legs back right as far as we can. And there's this idea that we have to like hike your legs way far back to get your baby out, which is a very silly idea. And I don't understand why, because it's not really doing anyone any favors, and it's not necessary to be all the way on your back with your legs hiked up really far back for you to be able to deliver your baby. Because when we put tension on the perineum, we're increasing our risk for tearing. There are muscles, it's called the posterior chain of muscles, that run all along the back of the legs, right, from your calves to your thighs, all the way to your pelvic floor and to your perineum. If we are hiking our legs back, we're adding tension. We're creating tension already on the perineum, and the perineum can only tolerate so much tension before it breaks, right, before it tears. So it's more ideal, if you're going to be on your back, to just have your legs be open, like naturally, right? I don't think that our ancestors just like got on their back and like held their legs really far back to give birth. You know, they probably were upright. It's well documented that women have been birthing upright, you know, for hundreds of years. I mean, even beyond that, we've probably been birthing upright for longer. Like I've seen different like artifacts and statues of like women birthing in different upright positions. So it's not very ideal, right, to be on your back with your legs hiked up. If you want to be on your back, you'll probably just assume whatever position is like more natural for you and probably more supportive to your perineum anyway, which would be just to have your legs like gently open. So water birth supports that if you're wanting to birth in the water in a reclining position. You could be in hands and knees in the tub. I think if your hands are in the tub as well, your face is going to be kind of in the water too, and we don't want you to swallow any pool water. So usually hands and knees involves the parent like leaning over the tub like this. You could also kind of be upright. You can be in a squat and support yourself by holding the edge of the tub. You could hold a scarf or a rebozo. I have one right here. This is a tool from Mexican midwifery that helps support upright birth. So if I'm like holding it here and then my support person has the other end and they're holding it, basically they're like supporting me in being upright if I want to be in a squatting position. Squatting does increase the risk for tearing because we're putting a lot of pressure on the pelvic floor. So if you're pushing in a squatting position and you feel the baby start to really come down, it might be ideal to maybe go into a kneeling or a lunge or a hands and knees or something like that for the actual delivery of the baby. I was in a kneeling with one leg up. I'm not sure what that was. I kind of want to say runner's lunge, almost like kneeling one leg up. I'm not sure, but that's how I was with every single one of my births. And I think with all of them, it was my right leg. It was, I think, which is so interesting. That's just like the way that the same position every time. It worked really well for me. It's important to realize too, like with position, if you are in neutral or your hips are tilted a little bit forward, like if you kind of lean back a little bit, the baby will probably come out in front of you. All three of my births, I did that. I leaned back, my hips kind of rotated forward and the baby came out forward. If you're leaning more forward and you rotate your hips more back, your baby will probably come out behind you, in which case we want someone to catch your baby behind you, if that kind of makes sense. So yeah, I feel like that's a pretty good summary of positions. If you want your partner to be there with you, your partner could be in the tub if you want, and they can support you physically in the tub. They can rub your back. They can do like a double hip squeeze or a counter pressure on your back. They can, you know, hug you and cuddle you and hold you. They could catch the baby, or your partner could be out of the tub and they could still be really close to you just by being at the edge, if that makes sense. So let's see, if someone has a low risk pregnancy, how would they decide between water birth or a traditional hospital bed one? Well, I think that deciding really comes down to whatever feels right for you. Like, I would say, what kind of birth do you want to have? Like, how do you want to feel when you're going through your birth? If you see a water birth video, do you feel like, wow, that's so inspiring? That really like looks like something that I want to do, you know? You want to do whatever feels true for you and whatever feels best for you. That's what is the most important thing to consider, you know? Yeah, it's good to like think about it. I have some specific tools that are helpful to kind of help parents really get clear on what it is that they want for their birth and how to make choices really deliberately from a place of love, in alignment with our birth intention, in alignment with what we want for our birth, and to like find that clarity. And then I think like approaching it from that self-awareness place can be helpful, in addition to just learning more and understanding kind of what it looks like from hospital, a bed to water, and kind of explore that.